So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Adrian Martinez.
Oh, thanks. Just totally nailed it. Very excited to be here, guys. Wow, people are here and they're excited to learn and join us. Am I going to sit here? Sorry, wrong person to ask. I think I will sit here. It's off to a good start here, sort of. I'm very excited. And we only got like an hour and change, so I'm just going to introduce. Can everybody just come out? Please welcome this phenomenal panel. Thank you so much. It's a big deal, and I thank Adam Moore, J.P. Geraldson, and Becky Karan for putting it together here in this beautiful space, Robin Williams Theater. Robin Williams is a huge inspiration to me, and I'm sure some of you, and we're in his space, man. And here's to Robin Williams. All right, this has nothing to do with the panel. This is my fresh direct order, but it makes me feel safe. Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA conversation, Careers in Focus, Colorful Works. But really, it's not so much a conversation as it is a celebration of the fact that you guys showed up for your career tonight. You showed up for your dreams and your ambitions, and please give yourself a round of applause. It's a scary-ass business, and I feel you got to do that. It's also a celebration of this wonderful, august panel here. I mean, these are the people that work all the time, and I'm so grateful to all of you guys for taking this time to just give back and give us your insights about how you keep this going, how you stay optimistic in a business that can be cruel, crushing, and how you keep the light inside you burning, man, because it's no joke to do that. Starting with Tony and Obie winner Priscilla Lopez. Series regular and award-winning director for his film Fortress, Amir Arison. Tony nominee and SAG award winner Yul Vasquez. Nalip and SAG winner Dasha Polanco. Nalip and Olo award winner Raul Castillo. And me. Just for the record, in case you were wondering, have I won awards? Yes, I have. For 10 years straight, I've been voted the actor most likely to get his role cut from a movie. And I'm really going for the 11th year this year, so wish me luck. But seriously, these panelists are here to tell you the stories in the hope that they will inspire you to keep fighting the good fight, because it's a noble profession, and it's worth fighting for. And I don't want to fool around and say anything other than the fact that I think the role of the artist has never been more important than right now in these times. And the fact that these people up here are storytellers putting their hearts and soul on the line is very inspirational to me, and I hope to you, and I encourage you all to do the same thing, because we need artists. We don't need more lawyers, we don't need more politicians, we need art, man. So. And no one has fought longer and harder than Priscilla Lopez, whose career spans an incredible 50 years. While being married, raising 2 children, after graduating from Manhattan High School of the Performing Arts, Ms. Lopez originated the role of Diana Morales for the iconic play A Chorus Line, for which she was nominated for a Tony Award. She won the Tony for her next production, A Day in Hollywood, A Night in the Ukraine. She did Stephen Sondheim's Company, and was in the original company of Pippin. Dozens of TV appearances and movies, of course, including Jennifer Lopez's mom in Maid in Manhattan, Tony and Tina's Wedding, A Miracle in Spanish Harlem, musical Chairs, And then she returned to the stage to do the Tony-winning show, Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights. Whatever happened to Lin-Manuel Miranda? Does that?
I knew.
We wish him well. We'll find out. Okay. But you spoke, Priscilla, about backstage about the need to do this, and I was wondering if you could expand on that, because a lot of people think you just show up and it's like, what did you mean by the need to do this?
Well, this business, as you all know, is impossible. It can be terrible, but it's also the most wonderful thing if you get to do with the thing that you love. And I remember, especially one time I was doing Chorus Line, and this little girl came backstage and she said to me, "I don't know if I want to be an actress or a doctor." I said, "Be a doctor." Yeah. I said, "Be a doctor because you'll go to school to study to be a doctor and you'll be a doctor." I said, if you want to be an actor, you may go and study acting, but you may not be an actor. So, and I said, and you have to want it more than anything else in the world. There is nothing else that you would or could rather do. You need to do it, and the focus has to be so like an arrow. And I was that kid. It all started really watching TV, and then I loved what I saw on the TV, and I really wanted just to climb inside the television, and be in those worlds with all those people. And so from that moment on, and then watching movie musicals on television, and my first musical that I saw was at 8 years old, The King and I. And then I realized theater and all of that. And so it was just something that I always had to do it. I had to do it. And I wanted to go to the High School of Performing Arts. And my mother said, "Well, what if you don't get in?" I said, "Well, then I'm not going to school. I have to go to that school." It's like there were never any alternatives. It was, this is what I have to do, and this is what I have to do, and this is what I have to do. So that's kind of what I think has to be inside you to keep you going, because otherwise it's impossible. But when you get to do it, you are so fed by it and so enlightened, and your light just turns on, and this is a good thing. When I had my kids, and I had hit that 40-year mark, where you're not the young chickie anymore, but they don't think you're the grandma, and they don't see you as a woman anymore, of course, because you're 40 years old. So, and I would, take care of the kids or whatever. Then I would go, and I was doing a play called Other People's Money. And I would go in, and I was just so happy and whatever. And they say, "How do you do it? You wake up early in the morning, you take care of your kids, and I said, "This is my play date. This is my play date." I take my kids to play dates. I said, "This is my play date." So it's like you have to just have that desire, that it's not a desire, it's a need. It's like you can't not do it. You have to do it.
And how do you have, when you have these moments, or do you have these moments of self-doubt and you don't know if you can continue? Because I know for myself, most of the time I just want the number 3 combo at Wendy's and to watch porn. And then I try to fight through that. But when you have moments of self-doubt, what do you, cut my mic on porn. But how do you fight through that? Or have you had moments of self-doubt where it's just how do you fight through that?
I have. I mean, like I said, you said 50 years, and it's true. And some were incredible and highs, and then they go down and they're lows. And I remember thinking, I'm smart. I could probably do something else. I could learn how to do something else. And I kept trying to search for what it was that I could do. But every time I thought about it, I said, "No, I don't want to do that." And and my husband said to me, he said, "Why don't you take all that energy of thinking what else you can do and just put it back in there and say, this is what I do and this is what I've got to do, and focus." And it's about staying connected. You study and you do as much as you can. When people ask you to do something, you show up, because you meet other people, you get energy, like something like this. You show up and you meet other wonderful actors, and you just do as much as you can do. You watch all the movies you can watch. You just try and do as much as you can in terms of what feeds your art. But then at the same time, you have to have a life. You know, you just can't be an actor, because then if you're just an actor, when you're not acting, you're nothing, you know? But if you're a person, no, I'm saying if you're a person, then you are,
Touch the nerve, go ahead.
you're a daughter, you're a sister, you're a mother, you're a girlfriend, you're a person, and you have a life, and you fill it with real life. And then
You have nothing to draw on it from your work.
right.
Yeah, if you don't live a life, you have nothing to draw on when you do get to work.
Right. I mean, and life happens. You know, it does
Aye.
happen anyway. But
Dasha Polanco, aside from being a fabulous actor and spokesperson for her country, the Dominican Republic, Dasha has 2.2 million followers, I'm not kidding, on Instagram. The bad news is they all live in her building and won't leave her alone. But seriously, how did you build such a phenomenal following? Because, I mean, I have 3 followers and we shared an Uber down here. How do you get to 2.2 million?
I don't know, Adrian. Doesn't pay me much, but I'm part of a great opportunity and show that has reached over 80 million viewers, and pretty much throughout the whole world. We're not seen in North Korea. Now we're being seen in Cuba, but for the most part, aside from the followers on Instagram, the followership that I do receive and have obtained is from my own fellow actors and from young little girls and young women that I see myself in, and for them to have the opportunity to reflect in someone like me and me have the absence of that, it's more valuable than any social media out there. I admire that, to be able to say this is what I have to do and I'm gonna do it regardless. For me, it was like, I wanna do this and this is what I love, but I have to do it sure, and I have to get a career, and I have to get 2 degrees and be unhappy for like 8 years and say this is not for me, and play with like the medical instrumentation, get written up for acting like Tomb Raider, Angelina Jolie, and Scrubs, and doing things that, you know, I felt happy doing. Shouldn't have done it in the hospital, but for the most part, this happened because I took a risk. I omitted my fear, and I said I'm gonna take a chance, and it is what it is. And when the opportunity came to audition for Gimme Shelter, which was the first audition I went on, and first pretty much opportunity, I booked it. And then I booked another show. And then I booked another show. And then I had a year of like, I'm gonna let this go because this is not consistent for me, and I'm a person that has to be in control and have consistency. Financially, schedule-wise, I just have to have control of that. And this line of business, you don't. You more so have to be open to receive and throw yourself, lancharse. And so I did. And divine intervention, I got Orange. I got to work with David O. Russell. I just booked another project that I'm very proud of. I can't speak about it, but after being on hiatus for 2 years and saying, like, you know, in between Orange, obviously, I'm a working actor, and you have moments of despair where you're like, you know, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, no. And then you're like, well, who did you book? And then you're like, I'm not saying I'm better than that person, but it's obvious they went in a totally different direction. Someone with a man that's like 70 years old and not me. You know?
you could have played a man.
I could, I'm telling you. Trust me. As a little girl, I've done a couple of things.
And have you had moments of self-doubt, and how did you fight through that?
I think that my moment of self-doubt was not pursuing it earlier in my life. Self-doubt is something that I'm working on now, that I have to fight every day, because even though I'm a working actor and I'm grateful that I am, it's not that you feel that I want the opportunity to be a lead. I want the opportunity to have a show where I am not just, you know, the friend of someone, or let me get a little hello, and then I want the opportunity to actually have offers and consistency and play a vast, you know, not play a Maid, not play if I play a maid, then let it be the lead maid. And the story's about her. But play, you know, but play, like Zoe Saldana, for example, has a great opportunity in Avatar where she's a mythical character. And that's the type of thing that Latinos and actors across, it's not, diversity shouldn't be a trend, it's just reality. And it's conflicting at times, but it's the truth. It's just the opportunities. Help me help you. Give me the opportunities.
There was this actress, Lupe Ontiveros, rest in peace. She got a lot of flack for playing the maid in, I think it's As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson. And she said, you know what, I'd rather play a maid than be one. And she built a wonderful career for herself. So do you find yourself being criticized for ever playing a stereotype, and how do you navigate through that?
Always, across the board, I think that there's always a question about stereotypes and the role that I play as Dayanara Diaz. These are stories. These are truths. We can't fight story, history, experiences. These are things that people it's not only in the United States, it's people that when I travel to Berlin, that don't speak my language, that relate to the relationship of Dayanara. Not the fact that she's an inmate. Oh, I relate to an inmate in jail. No, I relate to the story of Dayanara and her mother. That's what it's about. It's about the stories that we're telling. If they want to speak about stereotypes, watch the news and watch, politics, because, that's pretty based on stereotypes and facts and stuff. Not entertainment. These are stories. These are things that we experience that, as way off that they may seem, there's always one person that connects.
What advice do you have for the actors out there in the struggle that they feel like after 6-7 years, maybe I should give up? Did you give yourself a time, like if nothing happens within 5 years, then that's it? Or
I give myself that time every week. If it doesn't happen, impatience. I'm very impatient. Look, this is very hard. I have a great blessing, and for some reason, this is what I experience. But you have to. I believe in security, and I had 3 jobs, and I was like, I had a family to take care of. So for me, it was like, I can't leave my job. I'm still gonna do what I love. I'm not gonna give up on it, but I'm going to do my job. I have to support my family, and you have to know what's important for you. I could tell you here, eat ramen noodles and, whatever, just rent a room. For me, it was like, support yourself financially, be secure, because you have a family. It's not about you, it's about your family. And do what you love. And if it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen. And that's what happened to me.
I used to tell my mother, listen, Ma, this is really hard, I don't know. And she said, you know what? Nobody's forcing you. Killed that conversation. Dasha is in my movie I Creep. Her performance is absolutely heartbreaking. It comes out next year, and I'm really so proud of your work in that movie and everything you've done.
He gave me an opportunity.
Well,
a fellow Latino offered me a role.
yes. Yul Vasquez. Oh my God, this guy. I had the honor of working with him at the Public Theater in a play called The Last Days of Judas Iscariot.
So funny.
And Yul, it was such a virtuoso performance. I don't know how many of you had a chance to see it. But it was a combination, and I never told you this, but I swear to God, it was a combination of Buster Keaton and Raul Julia. Because he was just so free on stage, so freaking funny, and so absolutely moving with everything. And I don't know. I grew as an actor working with him. That's all I can tell you. You've worked with a lot, all these great directors, Paul Greengrass, Steven Spielberg, Steven Soderbergh, and of course, Phil. Is there anything you've learned from these directors, like in terms of the auditions? Because I know actors always want to know, like, how do you crack that nut? So is there something that all these great directors look for from actors in these auditions that you feel like you've been able to learn from?
Before I answer that question, I just want to say that this is one of the most talented humans I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And I'm not saying that just because he just gave me this incredible introduction. That's actually true. And there are many actors that you all in here respect and admire think this guy is the fucking shit. So know that.
Thank you.
That's true. That's just true.
I'm out of cash, but thank you.
That's right. I have Venmo. I think what these directors look for is for you to come in and, you know, some of these guys, I get an opportunity to meet them in the room, and sometimes you can't because they're in another country and you have to do it on Skype, or you have to make a tape or something like that. And I think what they look for, I think, is you know, sincere moments. You know what I mean? And that you bring something that is unique to you when you come and read for this thing, as opposed to trying to guess what it is that they wanted. You know, that you do you, because at the end of the day, that's all you can actually do, and that is the one thing that is unique to every single person in here. So, you know, I think that these guys see that and trust that, and then getting to work with them, I see that they really don't say anything to you. They pretty much leave you alone, particularly in the case of like Soderbergh, who's almost completely silent. And then when you have conversations with them, they go, hey man, I hire the people and I let them do their thing. You know what I mean? He creates a situation for you to do your thing, and then he's looking for that to happen. So I think that's what they look for. There's one director who will go unmentioned that said to me that he watches.
Who is it? I got cash. And
I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later. But he said he watches audition tapes with the sound off. And sometimes he'll put it in fast forward. And if the actor's moving too much, he moves on.
Wow. That explains
Well, just
a
think
lot.
about that for a second.
That's very interesting. You've been in the game a while. Do you feel like, do you see yourself as an actor of color, or do you feel like, you know what, I'm just Yule, this is it, take it or leave it? Like, and how do you feel like race has changed the game since the time you started till now, 2017?
Well, I have never been a guy that let the fact that I was a guy who came from Cuba when he was a kid with his mother be, and I mean this in the nicest way, be an anchor. I think if you begin to wave the flag for ethnicity or an actor of color, I think that what you do is that you handcuff yourself. So I think you cannot help to look the way you look. That's something that's the way that you were born. And the same thing that gets you apart is the same thing that will cost you apart. If that makes any sense. So you are who you are, you look what you look like, work as hard as you can on the thing in front of you, and go in and do you. Like the character you, and bring what you bring to the situation, and the rest is out of your hands. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. Control what you can control and let go of the rest.
Does your agent play a big role in your career? And there's this joke where, like, the reason that an agent gets 10% is because they do 10% of the work. I mean, do you
It's amazing.
do you feel that way, or do you feel like they've been helpful? And
I mean, this is not like, this is I'm just being truthful, really. I have a great agent and a great manager, and I think that they have in many ways changed my life. Dasha and I share an agent, and he's direct and to the point, and I think that he understands me and what is interesting to me to do, and that's all you can really ask for, So I can't complain really in that area.
And how do you keep it going for yourself? Because this business, I mean, it's no joke. People will promise you the world and then not deliver. People will say, hey, this is going to network, and then it doesn't. The hits that you take from the business side can really cripple an actor if the person is not ready for it. How did you fight through the fight?
listen, the hits come every day. The minute you wake up, the hits come. You know, I'm sure everybody in here, you'll do a reading for somebody's play, and then you hear that some giant, you know, you've done 10 readings or workshop to play or a film script, and then somebody else is going to play the part. If I had $1 for every time that's happened to me, I wouldn't be here right now. Good night, everybody. So there's no shortage of hits, and that is no matter where you are on the food chain. Even the sharks in the food chain have days of self-doubt and insecurity, which to me are forms of hits. So you either take the hit and keep going, or you fucking quit. You know, and like your mom said to you, nobody's making you do this. So it's like, you know, you either do this because you love it, and you have to create every day, and you have to get up. You know, and I would encourage everyone here to find different ways to create. You know, if I'm not working on acting, I'm taking photographs, I do music. You know, it's like create every day. But if that doesn't drive you, really, then do something else. Because that's really what this whole thing is about. You know, do you want to do this not because you think you're going to make a dime? Because when we all went into it, I mean, we didn't think we were going to make any money. We were just been happy if we could have paid the rent and kept the electric on. You know what I mean? No, I mean that's really like that was a score. Oh my God, I can pay the rent. That's incredible. You never think you're going to be able to buy anything nice or whatever from doing this. It just seems like an impossible thing, you know. And you know, I don't want to use luck because luck in a way disregards a tremendous amount of hard work, but there is an element of good fortune, you know, that you know, and that's the intangible in this whole thing. Does that help? I don't know if I hope that's helpful.
Help me, yeah, absolutely. Amir, Arison, you know, the thing about this guy, I love how specific and relentlessly honest you are about your work. And I didn't want to say this because I kind of don't like you as a person, but I felt like. I'm kidding. I like him as a person. We actually play the same character, but not the same character, but the same role in different shows. But we've yet to work together, and I hope that changes.
We worked together our characters over the phone in the embedded spinoff
Yes.
show.
Okay, so we have worked
And then you
together.
did it totally different than I imagined.
Right, because I wasn't listening when we spoke. But there's nothing personal. You work all the time, and you're like on the Blacklist. You were recurring on Girls, all these roles and everything, and yet you still went out and you directed and produced a short film, Fortress, which won awards. And I'm just wondering, like, what do you feel all actors have to be hyphenates today? Like, do you have to be a writer, producer, director, actor, blah blah blah? Because a lot of actors say, you know what, I'm not a writer. You know, I'm not. You know, I'm an actor. But in today's marketplace, do you feel like we have to be hyphenates now?
You know, I can't answer that for each individual artist that you are. I mean, you sort of have to know what you love, and, you know, like everybody on this stage is saying, if you can't do it, don't do it. If you have to fight for it, fight for it. You know, I remember when I graduated college, I was really into photography, and I was really into acting. And I was like, choose one, Amir. You have to choose one and put all your eggs in that basket. I'm not saying this is what everybody should do. And be good at that, and own that. So you can say you're an actor, whether you're working or not, know your craft, and see what may. I'm actually, I don't know how many years later, I'm still trying to get back into photography. But, and as I was making my way as an actor since college, I worked with a lot of directors, and I really started observing what I responded to, where I thought directors may have lost the ship, where they really held the ship tightly, where they had strokes of brilliance. And I just started absorbing and found that as an actor, I was just expressing a certain part of myself, and so knew that directing is something I wanted to try my hand in, but I was staying busy as an actor, and acting was paying and directing wasn't. So different friends, I started directing little workshops at different theater companies and really enjoyed it. There was a wonderful time where I started booking, when I actually like put acting aside for a second. I just directed my friend's play in LA, and that's when I made that tape for Girls. I made another tape for another movie, and I literally it's that thing that you say when you walk into audition and you're like, don't attach yourself to the results, which, as we all know, is like impossible to do. But I really did, and all of a sudden, and at the same time, also Blacklist came from that. I mean, I was getting on a plane the next day while I was shooting girls, and I was like, let me just go and get on this plane, whatever. So there is something to that, I think, when you lean into the other aspect. But I think this also connects to what Priscilla was saying, is like, live your life, do other things. I also really enjoy teaching and teaching young actors. It just reminds me of the original seed of joy that you get when you do this, when you started in elementary school or high school or college. And just, like Yul said, we imagine paying rent. I just imagine, like, I was so excited when I got my first children's tour and I got my equity card doing theater works. I literally thought I'd made it. I was like, I'm playing Templeton the Rat around the country. And yeah, and also by proxy, I got health insurance. It is a great part. Thank you, Yul. I still think about that part. I sometimes do those lines, not even kidding.
Get me out for it.
I'm off topic. What? Oh, wait, the hyphenate, the fortress. Okay, yes. Excuse me, sorry. I'm ADD, so we all are. So you asked me, so I remember I was like, okay, so how am I gonna, and I sort of started gleaming that I think I wanna be in television as a director, or maybe theater. Theater takes a lot of time. So I looked up these directing programs that I could do in my hiatus of Blacklist, and I remember one of them was the Warner Brothers directing program in LA, and it was exactly during the hiatus. And I was like, oh, so I applied, and I needed 2 recommendation letters. I got recommendation letter, I did the whole thing, and I was like, okay, I believe I'm gonna get into this program, and I'm on a show, and I wrote a letter. I was like, I work with directors, I'm learning from them, and right away they were like, okay, now give us your 2 directing samples on film. I was like, what? I didn't even see that part of the application. So at that moment, I then said, all right, sometime in the next few years, Amir, you gotta get a short film, or you gotta get something down on camera if you wanna do this. So the next opportunity I had was during the hiatus, and I didn't get a job. I was like, I didn't get a movie or a play or something, and I was like, well, I have 2.5 months. I'm not gonna sit on my ace, and not try to, I think everybody on this stage, I'm relentlessly hungry. I'm never satisfied. I'm never satisfied with my work. I'm never satisfied with, I think that's what keeps me going, is like, if I don't do my best or work my hardest, I can't sleep at night. I'm my biggest own.
I sleep like a baby. I sleep like a baby. Whether I show up or not, I'm out, man.
It's because you always do great work.
True, thank you.
Anyway, I'll finish this, and I'll probably, okay. So then when that gap in time came, I said, well, now I'm gonna make this short film. And it was a short film that I had wanted adapted from a play. Anna Ziegler wrote it. I called her, I said, I wanna make this film. And how did I put it together? I called in favors. I took a bunch of the crew from the Blacklist that had became my friends. I took a bunch of kids from NYU that had worked on their first feature that I had done. I just accrued, your fellow collaborators and creators are right next to you. You don't even know where you met them. Work hard, be gracious, be kind. That's the way you should be as a human anyway, but it pays enormous dividends unconsciously as an artist too, because then they want to work with you. My one rule on my film set was, I don't care how much experience they have. I don't care if they've done this. I was like, they have to want to work hard and they have to be cool. Just good vibes. I can work with someone who's, not as good at their craft, but they want to be. So much more than I can work with a genius who's a douche. So anyway, so I made it.
When you said that.
Say what?
Why were you looking at me when you said that? It's very interesting. All right, that's fine. Thank you. Amir, let me ask you something. Like, have you had the guts so far to go up to the Blacklist people and say, hey, you know what? Can I direct an episode? Or is that a conversation?
Actually, I went up to the producing director.
You put 4 years of your life into that show.
Say what?
You've put 4 years of your life. It's a fair question to ask them.
I actually don't want to direct that show. I see the directors just lose their minds on that show. It's such a stressful show, and it's also an action-based thriller show, and so much of the time is spent making those shots and not so much working with the actors as much. So I'm really more interested in sort of the dramedies, the Cables, the Oranges, the New Blacks, the girls.
$200,000 for a week.
All right, I'll trail. All right, put in a word. So that stuff, but so I did ask our producing director, Michael Watkins, I'm sure you know him. I was like, could I direct an insert unit to kind of sneak my way into getting a DGA card? And he was like, well, there's all these rules, and do you have a DGA card? I was like, no. He's like, no, you can't. I was like, okay, thanks. But I tried. There's no shame in asking. You don't know the answer unless you ask. You don't know if you're gonna fail unless you try. And also this thing we're all talking about how hard it is. There's something so, I don't know of a profession that requires more resilience than being an artist and especially being an actor.
Right.
And there's something great about not getting the part you want. And this is what I've learned over the years. It tests how much you want it, and it sharpens your need, and that's very good for acting.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Speaking of how hard it is, Raul Castillo's here. Raul, recently Raul was included in Variety's 10 Latinos to Watch. Just to be clear, who's watching exactly? And are they watching right now? And when will they stop watching? Because
What did you say?
Okay, who's watching? You're on the top, the 10 Latinos to watch, but who's watching you? Like who's that?
No, I don't know.
Right,
I mean, I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know how to.
Is the person watching Raul watching now? I see a couple hands. All right.
My family watches me, I know that much. So.
When you direct Raul, he's in my movie too, I Creep, you say 3 things: action, cut, and thank God, because you don't have to do anything. You don't have to, he is relentlessly open. His heart and soul is in every take. I swear to you. Like when I did my movie, I was all kind of messed up because I didn't have enough time to prep. It was just do it now or not do it. And Dasha and Raul were just like, they met one day, and the next thing you know, they were like lovers and in this big emotional scene. And that's before I said action. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It had nothing to do with. No, but really, they were really in this powerful scene with no rehearsal time, and you were both such warriors about it, and I really appreciate how you just dove in and did it. And Raul, I mean, you just bare your soul in everything you do, man. And like, whether it's HBO's Looking or all the stuff you're doing now. And how do you protect that emotional instrument? Because this business, like we discussed already, can really take its toll. How do you keep that sacred space sacred?
I mean, that's a constant battle, right? Like it's a every day on set. You never know what factors are going to play into the working day. But I think coming from an immigrant family, and my family's from northern Mexico. I was born in Texas and raised in Texas, but we have this immigrant mentality, and there's this kind of, you don't want to take up, like, at least my family, not everyone's like this, but my parents are like, they don't want to take up too much space. They don't want to, don't be the bad kid at the party that's gonna make us look, it just always like, why are you acting? We were always a problem, like. So it was always you had to learn to contain yourself, and one of the things that I've learned as an actor that's really been an arduous process has been learning to walk into a space and make it yours, whether it's a set or whether it's an audition room. Because the audition room was actually where it was most difficult for me, and that took a long time to even start to unpack, to try to unpack. That you walk into a space and you make it yours, and I mean, some of the people that I admire the most are the people that can go in there and make it their space. But I was always taught, I had to kind of, rewire my way of thinking as far as like how you, and you can still be kind and compassionate to people, but you don't have to be, but you also have to demand the things that you need in order to create, because there's all this time and money being spent and people making stuff, and if you can't do what you do and what you're paid to be there to do, then what's it all for? So I think it's your job to sort of create that space for yourself.
Acting in film and TV is very difficult, as we know. It's like you're trying to grow a rose in the middle of a refrigerator freezer, because there's nothing there. You have to come with it completely. how do you, like, on a given day, if you know you're gonna do like an emotional scene, and you've been sitting around for 7 hours, do you kind of like stay in the role the whole day? Do you just not think about the role? How do you know, I mean, what do you do so that when they say action, you are on?
Well, I was on a the only thing that comes to mind is I was on a show called Looking, and that was sort of my first big. I was a recurring the first year, which is already you're kind of like in a certain there's the series regulars and you're the recurring and you don't want to take up too exactly. So it was we were shooting this sort of ultimate breakup scene in essence. And it was an emotionally specific or demanding or whatever scene, and I'm breaking up with this guy, right? And I have all this, and I have the speech, and I'm like, I'm gonna do the talking, and I have a lot of dialogue, and I thought back to a time that I had a really tough conversation. I'm someone when I get emotional, I can't speak, I cannot like words don't come. But if I have something to say, and I know I have to say it, I practice it in real life. Not like, I'm not talking about like acting. Like I just go through. I practice saying it because I know in the moment I'm gonna get emotional. I need to make this point and this point and this point. Yeah, so I memorized the hell out of that monologue or that conversation, and then I remember landing on set, and it was a really fun show to be on. It's very jokey. It's very like we all had a lot of fun, but you want to serve the story, and this is a breakup. Like it's not you want to honor that, and it's interesting because the DP Reed Morano is a genius. I think she like picked up on the vibe of what was I don't know, but she got all her crew to and everyone just fell into place, and everyone all of a sudden started respecting the space. They just recognized that it was a different kind of day than every other day when we were like joking around, having fun, all that. And the whole crew kind of fell into it, and the space just opened up for it, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you have, just the craziest.
Like cheese.
Yeah. Stupid stuff that you have to think about. Like, it's like, and then you're still trying to think about abandonment issues you've had since you were 8 years old or whatever. And some guy's like snacking on his chicken salad or whatever.
And you talked about like writing down when you get emotional, writing down your feelings. Is this what kind of led you to be a playwright?
What led me to being a playwright was thinking that I could never make it as an actor. I was like, I should write plays because no one's gonna cast me, Yeah.
I met him doing a play before you were
that's right.
acting. I was in a workshop at the Public, and he was one of the writer. He was in the writing lab. I mean, he was
right.
moving forward as a writer,
Yeah.
and it was like, and you were so, and then of course all the girls were like, he's so good looking, and I was like, dude, you should act. No, I didn't.
I get that. Cruel. Borderline cruel. That was borderline. All right. Well, thank you, Raul. I remember working with you on Don't Let Me Drown, this HBO movie, and saying to myself, this kid's got chops.
Thank you, brother.
Damn it. All right. Who inspires you in this business? And I'm just gonna open this up to everybody. When you look at this business and you see people doing work, like you say, damn, if I could just do a scene with this woman or this man, anybody, who really is wow, this person is just, give me some of that.
Well,
Priscilla Lopez?
No, it wasn't. This is something that happened, in recent history. I'm embarrassed because I don't even know her name, but the old woman in Titanic. and she was nominated for an Oscar. So I said, I still have time. I could maybe, you know, as a real old lady, I could, you know, because it just shows you that as actors, we can just keep growing older, growing, and just keep growing and going and going and going. And so that, I know you were you were asking in terms of acting, but this was something in terms of longevity that made me realize I could really just keep doing this till I drop, you know, or jump into the ocean. But so I get inspired by people who hang in there, the actors who work and you don't really know their names, but you see them all the time and they're great, and you know, so that sort of thing, because it's the journeyman. Those are the people that inspire me, because I feel I'm part of that. You know, I've been very lucky and I've worked a lot, but it's never been easy. You know, because even when you work, it's hard. You know, especially in the theater, you have to do 8 shows a week, and if you're doing a musical, I gotta sing, it's a lot of stuff. So when you see people who last, I think that's what inspires me the most.
I love that you said that when your children said that they wanted to be actors, that you were really happy about that. And could you expand on that? Because a lot of times, you know, like parents, actors who have kids, they're like, "Oh, really? You wanna be an actor too?"
Well,
but you're like, "No, like, yeah, absolutely."
Well, because you know, it is a very difficult, ridiculously impossible business, and it's only gotten worse, and because of social media and all the rules are gone. You know, it's not like you go to school, you graduate, you get an agent, they send you out. This is like you're competing from, you know, The Voice, and you're competing from the, you know, all these shows. The Bachelor gets the woman, now they're gonna get married, and they're gonna have a show. I mean, it's like the entire universe is in this pool. And as an actor, you know, you're limited in terms of your, well, like you said you have how many millions of people? But I mean,
2.2 million.
That's something that the people look at now too. They say, oh, well, let's get her because she's got, you know, and I don't I don't even do Facebook. I mean, I said, I don't want to do all that stuff. But anyway.
They also tell you that you have an eye on you. So it's like, you're an actor that has a social media following, but then as an actor myself, I'm like, do I have to do this? And if I do something, being myself, being silly, don't do that. You know, people are looking at that. We can't, it makes our job more difficult if you be yourself, if you're moving your hips a certain way culturally, because I've been doing it since I was 5, but I'm moving my hips, so it's a big deal. Oh my God, Jesus, you're moving your hips? Oh dear. You know, it's like, there's more rules. There's also more opportunities for people that do it just to be famous. Yeah. You know, they don't do it because they love the art. They have a YouTube channel. These are my frustrations. You have a YouTube channel, you're doing little skits, and you become famous, you get all the deals, you get all the opportunities, you get the endorsements, you get...
Well, it's like they jump to the head of the line. It's like you feel like you're in line, you know, and you're putting in your time, and you're paying your dues, and you're learning, and you're studying, and then somebody comes, boom, and jumps to the head of the line, and you go, and don't pay their dues. But, you know, I really believe that you have to have that base if you want to stay in the game. You have to just, because, yeah, you're up there, but there's nothing underneath you to keep holding you up. There's not experience, there's not knowledge, there's not expertise, there's not, you know, the muscle power and the emotional power and the mental power that it takes you to keep doing this. So yeah, you can skip the line, but it's very hard. And then, you know, those people a lot of times are not prepared for they're here, and then the next day they're here, and it's like, oh my God, you know. But if you have that foundation. But anyway, to answer your question in terms of my children, my kids didn't even know what I did, because when I had them, like I told you in that break, I'm not the young chickie, but I'm not the grandma. And so I worked, for about 5 years, I did not work at all, and I was happy for that, because I raised my children, because I know if I had a job, I would have gone and done it, because that's what I do. So I wasn't working, but I got into my life that I say is important to have. So I got into it, and they were doing it, and my son, he was in high school. I think he was like a freshman in high school, and they were doing chorus line. And he's, you know, I guess he knew that I was in it or what, but it didn't make any sense because I never talked about these things. So the kids went crazy. Your mother's Tiana Morales. So he comes home and he said, Ma, did you used to be famous? And I said, well, in some circles, maybe. But anyway, the thing was that I never pushed it on them. I mean, they got their music lessons and they got dance lessons and all of that stuff, but that's part of your human cultural development too. I didn't do it in terms of, you know, I was not Mama Rose at all. So, but then when I went back to work, like my daughter would come to me to the theater because my husband was on tour and I didn't have a babysitter, so she'd be there. And then she started watching and, you know, they started getting into it slowly. And then they, you know, they showed their colors. And I went, ah! Well, but secretly, I was so happy. I was so happy because it brings me such joy. And I said, oh God, if they could just feel what I feel, I would be so happy for them. But it's been a very difficult road because they're not they're not competing the way I had to compete in a smaller world. Now they are competing against the universe. I was competing you know, for New York dancers. Then I competed with, you know, New York. It was very New York. It was all very, but now the people that come and do theater, they've just done that game show, or they just.
Now they're Skyping.
You know,
They're Skyping. Your
you know.
competition's
So
on Skype.
anyway, to answer your question, yes, I was thrilled, and now I'm horrified.
Amir, you had something to say?
You're talking about inspiring performers?
Yes.
I'll never forget this moment. It actually was a company. I was on tour a long time ago, and I was in Chicago, and I was like, I'm in Chicago. I got to see the theater here. And I looked up like their cool, you know, equal to like their Obie winning theater, and there was a production of the Gray Zone, Tim Blake Nelson's, you know, play about the Soldier Commando and the Holocaust of the Jews who had to burn, you know, who ran the gas chambers. And positive here. No, so so I remember I went there, I took my friend Pierre, and I was like, this is gonna be great. And we got in there, and I looked around, and there were 2 other people in the audience. And there was 4 of us, and he's like, looked at me, I was like, I'm sorry, it got a good review, I don't know, Chicago. And then out comes the ensemble, and there were 9 performers in that play. They more than doubled the audience. And it was one of the greatest performances I've ever seen. And it was in a little theater, and they were all brilliant, beyond dedicated. I mean, remarkable performances. And I remember each of them, specifically a couple. And that changed, I was like, so dedication to your art. And I've also, I mean, I know the stylist who works harder than anyone I know. Did anyone see when she was at, look to other arts too sometimes, because we can sort of get oversaturated with our own, I mean, acting is sort of there is a sort of ego-ness to it at all, and it's a lot of us, me, you. So look to other arts. I would say we live in like the greatest city in the world for inspiration. Go to the museum, go to this, and find out the story of how they made that. And it's like, you know, if they can do that, oh my God, I can work even harder. Or wow. So that's where I find usually.
I'm inspired by anybody that does anything well, whether it's a butcher or a guy who makes shoes. If somebody does something well with complete attention, that's interesting to me. That's my answer.
We have a couple of questions from the audience that they handed me. And so this is for anyone here. When or how did you feel a shift in your career, and what brought it about, i.e. representation, a role, or personal awareness?
I have an answer for that. About 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I was sort of in this, you know, speaking of like, what else can you do? What other career? Like, since I started acting, I never thought about any other, you know, theater, writing, whatever. I just never thought about anything else. There was no other go-to thing. And about 4 years ago, I was sort of at a point where, you know, at a sort of bottom. And and I remember having a conversation with a friend where we started together, and we were both at a place where she was writing for TV and miserable, and I was not working and miserable. And we were like, well, what else can we do? And we both said that to each other, and that scared the hell out of me, because I'd never thought about anything else. Like, I never thought, I'd always had bullshit jobs and to support this storytelling thing that I enjoyed. I got dropped by my agents. It was like this whole, dark period, the assistant at this agency sent me like a bunch of tapes that I had done, and I watched them. She was like, look at them and see what you learn from them, right? She did me that favor, and I sort of watched them, and I saw an actor like not auditioning, not creating not what I did on set, but like I was like me. That's all I was projecting. It's just like, give me the role, please. And it was such horseshit, because that's not what I do when I'm working and I'm free and I'm having a good time working. So I had to kind of examine how I went about auditioning, and have a conversation about it. And I went to my friend Heidi Marshall, taught a class at the time. She still teaches. Yeah, an on-camera.
No, Heidi Marshall. It's a good name.
And I didn't study acting. I studied playwriting, so I never studied acting. I just did it. It was like. And I enjoyed doing it, but I never studied it. I never took classes, or I had some classes here and there, but not a lot, and certainly not any. I didn't know time I had to audition on, going to a cold room where like all this weird. The audition is just so fraught with so many weird circumstances, and someone had to tell me, like, explain to me, I had to just kind of go and kind of examine it and look at it, and I think that it helped just to have a conversation about it with several people,
Anyone else?
There's something about the nature of the question. I mean, I get asked this a lot, both by people in the industry and not, like, now that you're on the show, how do you feel that you made it? And I really am allergic to that term, because honestly, I felt like I made it when I got Templeton the Rat. I'm not kidding. Or when I was like, I'm gonna do this, that walk I had with my mom, I was like, okay, she's like, what do you need to do? I was like, I need to get headshots. She's like, you have to hit the pavement and so forth. Like, and each job was like, you hired me, I get to do this role. And each one has brought, in some ways, directly or indirectly, the next job. And also, there's something that I think I learned a lot from being on this show. As far as you think you are, is not as far as you are. Often you're like, well, I did this. Don't they know that this should be next? No. There's the next door you go through, there's another 1,000 people that you're competing with. And I mean, I heard, like, when there's some great movie role, it's between Leo DiCaprio and Matthew McConaughey and Matt Damon, and they all have different lunch meetings to see who I mean, it never ends, the competition. So you just gotta love each part. And like, so, when people, when I hear the words from actors, like, I used to tell my friend in LA, she's like, oh, well, when I'm famous, I was like, just don't use the word famous. It means nothing. It's actually counterproductive to the concept of the artist. And it will stop your joy. Even if you get famous, you'll not love what you do. So whenever, like, there's shit. Look, I wouldn't have been invited on this panel if I wasn't. And so, I mean, that's a gift. But yeah, okay.
No, totally. Famous like chewing gum. It's good for a second and then it's gone. Yeah. Do you try to space your projects across all mediums as much as possible, or prefer to stay in one? Film versus TV versus theater?
I'll take whatever they give me. Whoever wants me.
I second that.
I wish it was that way. Gee, I just did a wonderful theater project. I think I'll do TV now.
Oh, it's like that for certain. It's just like that for certain people. It's like that for certain individuals, where they could choose to say, I'm going on. I feel like I've done enough, and now I could go write in Ireland and take a hiatus. It varies. I think it varies. It's not across the board.
I guess.
Rachel asks, what philosophies, practices, or theories do you feel really helped you shift from not acting professionally full-time to acting professionally full-time? and making a comfortable living acting? What philosophies, practices, or theories do you feel helped you go from not working to working? Anyone? Anyone?
I walked into that.
Amir?
There's a philosophy that first of all, I'm like 100% know that my career is because I had great parents who were supportive. And I would also just say that, if you don't have, wherever you are with your family or so forth, find that support person because it's so hard. Someone that really believes in you, like really believes in you and believes in what you do. That goes so far. A best friend, a teacher, anyone. Anyway, my mom always says when like either I'm down, and this kind of applies to life and acting, she goes, Amir, remember the 5 F's: family, friends, fitness, finance, faith. And then she goes, and the 6th one, it's also important, fucking. In parentheses. I'm not extremely religious. What'd you say?
It's sound advice.
It's sound advice. If you balance those, whatever is inside of you will grow. Your relationship, your da-da-da, and your work.
I got 5 out of 6.
So anyway, and I also think, by the way, faith, depending on where you are, your sort of spiritual compass, actually faith incorporates art. So, just when I was living for my acting and audition to audition, I was suffering, and my acting was suffering, and my life was suffering. And when I got those other things, I got love in my life, and and leaned back into my friends. Guess what flourished? Work flourished, and the joy of work flourished. So that's something that my mom taught me.
What, if you don't mind me asking, is your ethnicity? Like, what's your family background?
So my parents are originally from Israel, but before that, Romania, Poland, complicated, long history. Interesting that you asked that since we're on a diversity panel. When I graduated, my name is Amir. I was assumed to be Indian, Arabic, Afghan, and the body of my work, you can go on IMDb, are of those parts. And it was weird at first because then there would be certain parts. I remember, I wasn't only getting auditions for those parts, but then they were like, well, you're not that. And this is a whole can of worms that all of us on this panel and everyone in this room can talk about. The relationship with diversity and diversity in this industry. But I like what Yul said. It's like, no one's gonna hold, if you don't want me because I'm not Pakistani, no problem. Find the perfect Pakistani actor. If you don't want me because I don't look Jewish in the way you think, no problem. You do what you need to do. They want me over here. And I'll go work with them. And I respect your reasons. There's a lot of reasons, studios, diversity programs, there's a lot of good reasons and good logic, and there's arguments all. It's not my job to fix that. What my job was when I realized when I graduated that those were the only auditions I got, was like, well, let me perfect my Arabic accent, let me get my Indian going, let me see what I can do,
So you think
and go
the
from there.
solutions, not the problems.
That's right, you have to.
Yeah. Did anyone ever tell you should change your name? I bring this up because they told me, I had an agent once, she's not with me anymore, but she said, you should change your name to from Adrian Martinez to Al Martin. And I couldn't do it. She said, but you could play a Martin or a Martino. Al Martino, I'll meet you halfway. I said, no, I just felt like I would be dissing my entire people. Did anyone ever ask you to call yourself like Yankee?
Somebody wanted me to call myself Janet.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, nobody ever. No, nobody ever did. Nobody ever asked me to do that. Nobody can spell my name right, but they get corrected right away. But no one asked me. And
would you have had they asked?
would I? No, because I loved guys like Andy Garcia, who's kept, Raul Julia. I mean, guys, they kept their names. I mean, I've nothing against anybody that wants to change. I know a lot of guys have changed their names. And some people, actually, some people have said to me, man, had you changed your name? But I didn't. So that's neither here nor there, really.
This question comes from Dave Powers. Yul, why haven't you done gladiator movies? I have no idea what that.
Why haven't I done gladiator movies? This is,
Is that really a question?
that's an actual
There he
question.
is. There he is.
I've never, probably because I've never had the opportunity to do a gladiator movie. But for you, if it arises, I will do it.
All right. There you go. We have some time. How much? We have 5 minutes. I'm really hoping she works here. Does anyone have questions from the audience? I see one right here up front, right there with the glasses. Hi, Michael.
Oh, hey, brother.
How do you feel about the low numbers of Dominican American actors in film and TV, and do you feel that we should be more representative?
Well, I agree with like you don't raise your flag. Like, look, I am. But I also agree that I embrace that, and if there's gonna be a Dominican played on TV, then I should play the Dominican and not somebody else. You know what I mean? I'm really proud from where I am. I'm working with the consulate now to enrich the culture because culturally in the Dominican Republic, it's more about music. We don't have. We have a film director that should go to DR. And
I was actually in Punta Cana 2 weeks ago.
oh,
so
really?
Thank you.
But okay, great. But the point is that, immigrant to the United States, like Raul and many of us, there's also there's a vast gap in Dominican actors, and it comes down to the culture there. I just went to visit one of the major studios there, and that was one thing that they raised the flag because I'm the ambassador with the consulate for Dominican Republic when it comes to acting, theater. I have a school that I'm working on for the youth there in Dream with kids that were either abandoned, that were sexually slaved, just to enhance the art. And so the culture has to change there, and we have to work together. We have to enrich those stories and bring them here.
I too am Dominican Nicaraguan. I'm the only Dominican in showbiz. I take great pride in that right there.
Good job, man. You're one of my favorite actors. Thank you. Is there any actor that you would like to co-star with, male or female?
So many, but since we're speaking of people who inspired us tonight, I just went and watched Latin History for Morons the other day at the Public Theater. And when I was in high school, I performed monologues from Spicorama. I think I got into Boston University doing one of his monologues, and that was John Leguizamo. I've met him maybe a couple times, but we don't know each other. But
You could do his life story. You look just like him.
he was someone that made me think I could do it, because I didn't think that someone like me could do it. And then he was doing his thing, and I remember watching Carlito's Way and going, who is that? And then like reading his one-man shows, and they were doing them at the Public Theater, and he was telling stories that, so, I mean, that's who comes to mind of someone, we're talking about someone, but there's so many actors that, I can think of so many, and like, we're lucky to work at a great time when there's so much work out there. There's a lot of stuff, like there's a lot of news, there's a lot of new media, as they say, and there's a lot of new output, a lot of new players in the game, so to speak. Yeah, we'll see. But Leguizamo's.
Faye Paris. Faye, you here? She asks anyone on the panel, given the changing political climate, what role will film play in shaping people's views of their self-worth and empowerment?
Well, I think it goes back to seeing ourselves on screen. It's representation. If we see our stories told in an honest, and it goes back to the thing that you asked earlier about like when you get those, I don't know how you worded it, but quote unquote like stereotypical moments, and how you either bring life to them or bring some level of empathy to a character, even if it feels like a one-dimensional character. I think there's something, it could be a one-note thing, but you can bring so much to it. There's some roles you just can't fix, but you could do a lot, and I think the onus is on us when we, you know, at least when, luckily there's a lot more representation now, and that gives me hope. You know, when I was growing up, there was a lot less, and it gives me hope that people are doing more to tell a wider range of stories and to represent marginalized communities. I've been really lucky to be a part of a number of projects that I don't know if it's because I think the way that I think, that those projects came to me, and that I have the personal politics that I do. I don't know what it is, or that I just happen to, they were gifted to me. I don't know, but it is, they're in line with how my views of the world, and I hope I get more of those opportunities.
There's something. The best thing I can say about is the first time I've been being a series regular on a show is you actually do have some influence. It depends on your creators and your collaborators, but you know, you probably similar. But you can actually sort of suggest, well, this is this, or catch a mistake. There was sort of a cultural mistake they were making, and I called him. I said, you know, you don't want to call Iranians Arabs. And he was like, oh my God, what should it be? And actually, it was an opportunity. It was the first conversation I had with our creator about ethnicity, and. When I auditioned for the part, the role was named Morgan Hackett, and they were looking at all ethnicities. It was wide open. They didn't know what they were looking for. It was everybody from the whole gamut of ethnicities, and tall, short, and everything. And when I got hired and I got the script, I was looking for the name Morgan Hackett, and I was like, did they give me the wrong script? And then it was an episode taking place with a lot of Chinese co-stars. I was like, I don't think I'm playing any of these Chinese characters. And then I was like, I'm not one of the women characters. I'm not Janet. And then and then I was like, well, it's down to like 2 other guys. And I was like, I don't think I'm Frank. I think I'm Aram Mojtabai. So I was like, they changed the name, and they changed it to an ethnicity thinking I'm Iranian, and I'm not. And I was like, ugh, just when I think I'm getting out of the box, they're putting me back in an ethnic box. However, when I got there, the director's like, I told them to name him Amir to be like you, and they came up with Aram. So it was really interesting. So they're like, well, this character's supposed to be similar to you, but they got the ethnicity a little off, even though we're all the same. Depends. Okay, again, the can of worms. So in the second year, when I called the creator, and I said, look, there's an opportunity here. We have to honor the Iranian Muslim last name you've given this character, Mojtabai. He's like, yeah. I was like, but we don't know where his mother's from. We know the character's American. Why not his mother be Jewish? He's like, okay, well, what do you mean? I said, well, Islam is patrilineal. Judaism is matrilineal. This guy can literally be both a Muslim and a Jew. And it was like, you know, I kind of stay away from it.
Brilliant.
Oh, he said something not funny. No, and so it was one of the few times, and he was like, it's great. And I give him corrections when he makes slight sort of errors. He's so collaborative. He's so well, I mean, God bless John Bokenkamp. You know him for doing that. But it's also 2 people that often in sort of geopolitics get pitted against each other. And it's like, look, my character's a good guy. Why can't he be a hero for both and be a representation of so forth? So it's barely noticed. Most people don't catch it, but there's like a little line every season, or one little line. And when you're given a platform, if you're given the lead role in a student film or something, you have a voice. Use it. And if it's somebody who's absolutely closed-minded and not willing to break stereotypes, or is a racist or a homophobe or a sexist, don't work with them again.
What's your question again? Because there's something about empowering. Right. I do not ever approach anything thinking I'm going to empower anyone. Empowering someone is a byproduct of a performance that speaks to someone. I think if you approach something by thinking you're going to empower somebody, you are already done. So I would encourage you. I'm assuming that you are an actor.
No, and in fact, I should clarify it. Do you think that you can portray a message? I'm in the legal field and I do a lot of human rights work, so you're correct. You can never empower someone because it has to come from within.
Correct.
You have a role to perhaps be a voice to
No, No, not, I'm not a role model. I am not, I do not, that's not my profession. It's not I have a responsibility to the part, and some of that may come in there if you're playing someone who is an actual person living or dead, but I never feel like I need to be responsible, it's, yeah, because I think that's a tricky area to get into.
You're being true to the art, and in doing that, perhaps that in and of itself is
Right.
I just wanted, because I had heard Empower, and I wanted to make sure, I want to address that, because I think it's a dangerous road for actors to go down, thinking forget role model.
I would like to address that question too. 40-something years ago, I was doing a chorus line, and it's based on, all the stories are based on people's real stories. So I was doing myself, and my character's name was Deanna Morales. So I was up there doing my thing, loving it, doing it, whatever, and the show was a big hit, and lots of things happened. My career went on, and things happened. So fast forward, 25 years later or more, and I'm doing a show, and suddenly I'm realizing what I did way back then has affected a whole generation of young Latino artists. I had no idea. John Leguizamo was one of them. He spoke about it in one of his shows, and I was like freaked out in the audience going, he said, when I saw Deanna Morales up on that stage, I knew I could do this. I worked with Mandy Gonzalez, and she said, when I saw that Z at the end of your name, I knew I could do this. It was like, I had no idea, and it became such a gift to me to think, wow, I was just doing what I loved. And I guess I did what I loved so well that it did exactly what you're saying. It empowered people to know that they could go on to and do what they needed to do in terms of, let's say, the world of ethnicity, So we do it not purposely, but it, as you all said, it's a result of what we do.
Well, we're out of time. I just want to say before we go, one of my favorite writers is Joseph Campbell, and he wrote a book called The Power and Myth, and he spoke about a net of gems. If you take a gem and you put it apart, it's nice, but if you put that one gem into a net of gems, then each gem reflects off the other, and the whole net glistens. That's what happened here tonight. These gems up here with the gems in the audience. This room glowed tonight. Thank you all very much.